Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki, Namacharya Haridas Thakur ki. Praise the Lord Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki. Shri Radha Krishna, Gopinath, Shamakunda, Radhakunda, Vrindavan Dham ki, Mathura Dham ki, Navadvip Dham ki, Mayapur Dham ki, Jagannath Puri Dham ki, Jagannath Swami ki, Kandamai ki, Jamunmai ki, Tulsi Devi ki, Bhakti Devi ki, Shamadeva Bhakti Vrinda ki, Hai Lord Premanande, Glorious ki Santa, glorious ki Santa, glorious ki Shri Shri Guru Shri.
Like we started Maharaj will give a class now, and we will complete Krishna book. And at 10 o'clock, there will be a bhajan group led by dear Shankar Maharaj and Avi from Norway, and Avi Prabhu from Ireland. And everybody is of course welcome to come to that. And also at 12 o'clock, there is bhajan group with Mataji. That's right, Krishna Preman Mataji, and Ishwar is here. Yeah, so welcome for that.
Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasi Gaura Shri Radha Krishna All glories to the Son. All glories to the Son. All glories to the Son. Gracias por venir. Y bueno, quería decir algo, contar algo, que hace muchos años, en el año 1969, cuando yo bueno, I'm accustomed to speak Spanish. Sorry. So many years back, in 1969, Srila Power came to Germany. And just a few days before, maybe a week before I joined, I became a devotee in Hamburg. So when Power came, he celebrated with us Janmashtami and also Vyasa Puja. And I remember on the Janmashtami day, Power was fasting all day. So somebody, Hari Riva, one of the first devotees of Power, came from New York, and he was carrying the manuscript of the Krishna book, which Prabhupada was about to publish. And he was Prabhupada's editor. He was a professor in English. So he came and he brought us a bhakta from New York who was going to be initiated on Janmashtami. And I remember when Prabhupada was there, he asked Hari Riva, in the morning, he asked him to read from the Krishna book. So we were hearing from the Krishna book for a good time, and because it was the first time everyone was fasting, gradually we all went into the horizontal position. And so at night, when we were supposed to break the fast, I remember Purushottam, who was Prabhupada's servant that he had become with him, he gave him a plate of fruit. And I don't remember anything else, but I remember that Prabhupada was eating only fruit to break the fast. And the next day was Vyasa Puja, Srila Prabhupada. And there was also Bhagavatam. We had Prabhupada present before us. And there were no Vyasa Puja books yet. No, so everyone was just speaking to Srila Prabhupada. And nobody had prepared anything like we do nowadays. And I remember all of a sudden they also gave me a kick. Speak to Prabhupada. No? So, no, I stood before Srila Prabhupada, and I didn't know enough English, so I started speaking in German to Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada looked at me, kind of hearing, offering in German. And after that, when we had all offered our something, how you say, thankfulness, what do you say?
Gratitude.
Offering.
Huh? Gratitude, yes, that's gratitude. Then all of a sudden the devotees got up and danced. We had never seen that before. You know, before that we were always sitting there in the temple like, Krishna, Krishna. But it was the first time that I saw devotees dancing. Of course, in that temple, this was the beginning. So we had Jagannaths on the altar, but nobody had an idea how to worship them. They were just standing there. So then, a little later, Prabhupada was very anxious for us to have deities. Well, that's a long story, I won't get into it now. So as I mentioned before, so Srila Bhagavad had Harigriva read from the Krishna book. And since that time, whenever I'm supposed to speak on Janmashtami, I always read from the Krishna book. So the appearance of Krishna. So I hope it's okay with you. Yeah. Because I was also thinking there's nobody else who can explain to us better the appearance of Krishna than Srila Prabhupada. So as we have time today, nobody will take breakfast this morning, so we can maybe expand a little more. I don't know. Maybe that's okay with the management here. So I will start. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The advent of Lord Krishna. Once the world was overburdened by the unnecessary defense forces of different kings, who were actually demons, but were posing themselves as a royal order. At that time, the whole world became perturbed, and the predominating deity of this earth, known as Bhumi, went to see Lord Brahma to tell him of her calamities due to the demonic kings. Bhumi assumed the shape of a cow and presented herself before Lord Brahma with tears in her eyes. She was bereaved and was weeping just to invoke the Lord's compassion. She related the calamitous position of the earth, and after hearing this, Lord Brahma became much aggrieved, and he at once started for the ocean of milk, where Lord Vishnu resides. Lord Brahma was accompanied by all the demigods, headed by Lord Shiva, and Bhumi also followed. Arriving on the shore of the milk ocean, Lord Brahma began to pacify Lord Vishnu, who had formerly saved the earthly planet by assuming the transcendental form of a boar. In the Vedic mantras, there is a particular type of prayer called Purusha Shukta. Generally, the demigods offer their obeisances unto Vishnu, the Supreme Person of Godhead, by chanting the Purusha Shukti. It is understood herein that the predominating deity of every planet can see the Supreme Lord of this universe, Brahma, whenever there is some disturbance on this planet. And Brahma can approach the Supreme Lord Vishnu not by seeing him directly, but by standing on the shore of the ocean of milk. There is a planet within this universe called Sritadvipa, and on that planet there's an ocean of milk. It is understood from various Vedic literatures that just as there is an ocean of salt water on this planet, there are various kinds of oceans on other planets. Somewhere there's an ocean of milk, somewhere there's an ocean of iron, and somewhere there's an ocean of liquid, and of many other types of liquids. The Purusha Shukta is a standard prayer which the demigods recites to appease the Supreme Person of Godhead, Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. Because he is lying on the ocean of milk, he is called Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. He is the form of the Supreme Person of Godhead, to whom all the incarnations within this universe appear. After all the demigods offered the Purusha Shukta prayer to the Supreme Person of Godhead, they apparently heard no response. Then Lord Brahma personally said a meditation, and there was a message transmission from Lord Vishnu to Brahma. Brahma then broadcast the message to the demigods. That is a system of receiving Vedic knowledge. The Vedic knowledge is received first by Brahma from the Supreme Person of Godhead through the medium of the heart. As stated at the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, The transcendental knowledge of the Vedas was transmitted to Lord Brahma through the heart. Here also, in the same way, only Brahma could understand the message transmitted by Lord Vishnu, and he broadcast this to the demigods for their immediate action. The message was this: the Supreme Personality of Godhead will appear on the earth very soon, along with his supreme powerful potencies. And as long as he remained on the earth's planet to execute his mission of annihilation, annihilating the demons and establishing the devotees, the demigods should also remain there to assist him. They should all immediately take birth in the family of the Yadu dynasty, wherein the Lord would also appear in due course of time. The Supreme Personality of God himself, Krishna, would personally appear as the son of Vasudeva. Before his appearance, all the demigods, along with their wives, should appear in different pious families in the world, just to assist the Lord in executing his mission. The exact word used here is tat priyartam, which means the demigods should appear on the earth in order to please the Lord. In other words, any living entity who lives only to satisfy the Lord is a demigod. The demigods were further informed that Ananta, the plenary portion of Lord Krishna, who is maintaining the universal planets by extending his millions of hoods, would also appear on earth before Lord Krishna's appearance. They were also informed that the external potency of Vishnu, Maya, with whom all the conditioned souls are enamored, would also appear by the order of the Supreme Lord, just to execute his purpose. After instructing and pacifying all the demigods, as well as Bhumi with sweet words, Lord Brahma, the father of all Prajapatis, or progenitors of the universal population, departed for his own abode, the highest material planet called Brahma Loka. The leader of the Yadu dynasty, King Shulasena, was ruling over the country known as Mathura, wherein lies the city of Mathura, as well as the district known as Shulasena, which was named after him. On account of the rule of King Shulasena, Mathura became the capital city of all the kings of the Yadus. Mathura was also made the capital of the kings of the Yadu dynasty, because the Yadus were a very pious family and knew that Mathura is the place where Lord Sri Krishna lives eternally, just as he also lives in Dwarka. Once upon a time, Vasudeva, the son of Shulasena, just after marrying Devaki, was going home on his chariot with his newly wedded wife. The father of Devaki, known as Devaka, had contributed a sufficient dowry because he was very affectionate towards his daughter. He had contributed hundreds of chariots completely decorated with gold equipment. At that time, Kamsa, the son of Ugrasena, in order to please his sister Devaki, had voluntarily taken the reins of the horses of Vasudeva's chariot and was driving. According to the custom of the Vedic civilization, when a girl is married, the brother takes the sister and brother-in-law to their home. Because the newly married girl may feel too much separation from her father's family, the brother goes with her until she reaches her father-in-law's house. The full dowry contributed by Devaka was as follows: 400 elephants, fully decorated with golden garlands, 15,000 decorated horses, and 1,800 chariots. He also arranged for 200 beautiful girls to follow his daughter. The Kshatriya system of marriage still current in India, dictates that when a kshatriya is married, a few dozen of the bride's young girlfriends, in addition to the bride, go to the house of the king. The followers of the queen are called maidservants, but actually they act as friends of the queen. This practice is prevalent from time immemorial, traceable at least to the time before the advent of Lord Krishna 5,000 years ago. So Vasudeva brought home another 200 beautiful girls along with his wife Devaki. While the bride and bridegroom were passing along on the chariot, there were different kinds of musical instruments playing to indicate the auspicious moment. There were conchas, bugles, drums, and kettle drums. Combined together, they were vibrating a nice concert. The procession was passing very pleasingly, and Kansa was driving the chariot, when suddenly there was a miraculous sound vibration from the sky, which especially announced to Kamsa, Kamsa, you are such a fool. You are driving the chariot of your sister and your brother-in-law, but you do not know that the 8th child of this sister will kill you. Kamsa was the son of Ugrasena of the Bhoja dynasty. It is said that Kamsa was the most demonic of all Bhoja dynasty kings. Immediately after hearing the prophecy from the sky, he caught a hold of Devaki's hair and was just about to kill her with his sword. Vasudeva was astonished at Kamsa's behavior. In order to pacify the cruel, shameless brother-in-law, he began to speak in tones with great reason and evidence. He said, my dear brother-in-law, Kamsa, you are the most famous king of the Bhoja dynasty, and people know that you are the greatest warrior and a valiant king. How is it that you are so infuriated that you are prepared to kill a woman who is your own sister at this auspicious time of her marriage? Why should you be so afraid of death? Death is already born along with your birth. On the very day you took your birth, you began to die. Suppose you are 25 years old, that means you have already died 25 years. Every moment, every second, you're dying. Why then should you be so afraid of death? Final death is inevitable. You may die either today or in 100 years. You cannot avoid that. Why should you be so afraid? Actually, death means annihilation of the present body. As soon as the present body stops functioning and mixes with the 5 elements of material nature, the living entity within the body accepts another body according to his present actions and reactions. It is just when a man walks on the street, he puts forward his foot, and when he is so confident that this foot is situated on sound ground, he lifts the other foot. In this way, one after another, the bodies change and the soul transmigrates. See how the plant worms change from one twig to another so carefully. Similarly, the living entity changes his body as soon as a higher authority decides on his next birth and body. As long as the living entity is conditioned within this material world, he must take material bodies one after another. His next particular body is offered by the laws of nature, according to the actions and reactions of this life. The body is exactly like one of the bodies which we already see in dreams. During our dream of sleep, we create so many bodies according to mental creation. We have seen gold, and we have also seen a mountain. So in a dream, we can see a golden mountain by combining the 2 ideas. Sometimes in dreams, we see that we have a body which is flying in the sky. And at that time, we completely forget our present body. Similarly, these bodies are changing. When you have one body, you forget the past body. During a dream, we may make contact with so many new kinds of bodies, but when we are awake, we forget them all. And actually, these material bodies are the creations of our mental activities. But at the present moment, we do not recollect our past bodies. The nature of the mind is flickering. Sometimes it accepts something, and immediately it rejects the same thing. Accepting and rejecting is a process of the mind in contact with the 5 objects of sense gratification: form, taste, smell, sound, and touch. In its speculative way, the mind comes in touch with the objects of sense gratification, and when the living entity desires a particular type of body, he gets it. Therefore, the body is an offering by the laws of material nature. The living entity accepts the body and comes out again into the material world to enjoy or suffer according to the construction of the body. Unless we have a particular type of body, we cannot enjoy or suffer according to our mental proclivities inherited from the previous life. The particular type of body is actually offered to us according to our mental conditions at the time of death. The luminous planets like the sun, moon, or stars reflect themselves in different types of reservoirs like water, oil, or ghee. The reflection moves according to the movement of the reservoir. The reflection of the moon is on the water, and the moving water makes the moon also appear to be moving. But actually the moon is not moving. Similarly, by mental concoction, the living entity attains different kinds of bodies, although actually he has no connection with such bodies. But on account of illusion, being enchanted by the influence of Maya, the living entity thinks that he belongs to a particular type of body. That is the way of conditioned life. Suppose a living entity is now in a human form of body. He thinks that he belongs to the human community, or a particular country, a particular place. He identifies himself in that way and unnecessarily prepares for another body, which is not required by him. Such desires and mental concoctions are the cause of different types of bodies. The covering influence of material nature is so strong that the living entity is satisfied in whatever body he gets, and identifies with that body with great pleasure. Therefore, I beg to request you not to be overwhelmed by the dictation of your mind and body. Vasudeva thus requested Kamsa not to be envious of his newly married sister. One should not be envious of anyone, because envy is the cause of fear, both in this world and the next. When one is before Yamaraj, the Lord of punishment after death, Vasudeva appeared to Kamsa on behalf of Devaki, stating that she was his younger sister. He also appeared at an auspicious moment at the time of marriage. A younger sister or brother is supposed to be protected as one's child. The position is overall so delicate. Vasudeva reasoned that if you kill her, it will go against your high reputation. In this way, Vasudeva tried to pacify Kamsa by good instruction as well as by philosophical discrimination. But Kamsa was not to be pacified because his association was demonic. Because of his demonic association, he was a demon, although born in a very high royal family. A demon never cares for any good instruction. He is just like a determined thief. One can give him moral instruction, but it will not be effective. Similarly, those who are demonic or atheistic by nature can hardly assimilate any good instruction, however authorized it may be. That is the difference between demigods and demons. Those who can accept good instructions and try to live their lives in that way are called demigods. and those who are unable to take such good instruction are called demons. Failing to attempt to pacify Kamsa, Vasudeva wondered how he would protect his wife, Devaki. When there's imminent danger, an intelligent person should try to avoid the dangerous position as far as possible. But if, in spite of endeavoring by all intelligence, one fails to avoid the dangerous position, there's no fault on his part. One should try his best to execute his duties, but if the attempt fails, it is not at fault. Vasudeva thought of his wife as follows: for the present, let me save the life of Devaki. Then later on, if there are children, I shall see how to save them. He further thought, if in the future I get a child who can kill Kamsa, just as Kamsa is thinking, then both Devaki and the child will be saved, because the law of providence is inconceivable. But now, some way or other, let me save the life of Devaki. There is no certainty, however, in living energy contact. There is no certainty how a living energy contacts a certain type of body, just as there is no certainty how a blazing fire comes in contact with a certain type of wood. When there is a forest fire, it is experienced that the blazing fire sometimes leaps over one tree and catches another by the influence of the wind. Similarly, the living entity may be very careful in the matter of executing his duties, but it is still very difficult for him to know what type of body he is going to get in the next life. Maharaj Bharata was very faithfully executing the duties of self-realization, but by chance he developed temporary affection for a deity, and in the next life he had to accept the body of a deity. Vasudeva, after deliberating on how to save his wife, began to speak to Kamsa with great respect, although Kamsa was the most sinful man. Sometimes it happens that a most virtuous person like Vasudeva has to flatter a person like Kamsa, a most vicious person. That is the way of all diplomatic transactions. Although Vasudeva was deeply aggrieved, he smiled outwardly. He addressed the shameless Kamsa in that way because he was so atrocious. Vasudeva said to Kamsa, "My dear brother-in-law, please consider that you have no danger from your sister. You are awaiting some danger because you have heard a prophetic voice in the sky. But the danger is to come from the son of your sister, But the danger is to come from the sons of your sister, who are not present now. And who knows, there may or may not be sons in the future. Considering all this, you are safe for the present. Nor is there cause of fear from your sister. If there are many sons born of her, I promise that I shall present all of them to you for necessary action." Kamsa knew the value of Vasudeva's words of honor, and he was convinced by his argument. For the time being, he desisted from the heinous killing of his sister. Thus Vasudeva was pleased and praised the decision of Kamsa. In this way, he returned to his home. Each year, therefore, in due course of time, Devaki gave birth to a child. Thus she gave birth to 8 male children, as well as 1 daughter. When the first son was born, Vasudeva kept his word of honor and immediately brought the child before Kamsa. It is said that Vasudeva was very much elevated and famous for his word of honor, and he wanted to maintain this fame. Although it was very painful for Vasudeva to hand over the newly born child, Kamsa was very glad to receive him. But he became a little compassionate with the behavior of Vasudeva. This event is very exemplary. For a great soul like Vasudeva, there's nothing considered to be painful in the cause of discharging his duty. A learned person like Vasudeva carries out his duties without hesitation. On the other hand, a demon like Kamsa never hesitates in committing any abominable action. It is said, therefore, that a saintly person can tolerate all kinds of miserable conditions of life. A learned man can discharge his duty without awaiting favorable circumstances. A heinous person like Kamsa can act in any sinful way, and a devotee can sacrifice everything to satisfy the Supreme Personality of God. Kamsa became satisfied by the action of Vasudeva. He was surprised to see Vasudeva keeping his promise, and being compassionate upon him and pleased, he began to speak as follows. My dear Vasudeva, you need not present this child to me. I am not in danger from this child. I have heard that the 8th child born of you, the Devaki, will kill me. Why should I accept this child unnecessarily? You can take him back. When Vasudeva was returning home with his firstborn child, although he was pleased by the behavior of Kamsa, he could not believe in him because he knew that Kamsa was uncontrolled. An atheistic person cannot be firm in his word of honor. One who cannot control the senses cannot be steady in his determination. The great politician Chanakya Pandit said, never put your trust in a diplomat or a woman. Those who are addicted to unrestricted sense gratification can never be trusted, nor can they be trusted with any face. At that time, the great sage Narada came to Kamsa. He was informed of Kamsa's becoming compassionate to Vasudeva and returning his firstborn child. Narada was very eager to celebrate the descent of Lord Krishna as soon as possible. He therefore informed Kamsa that in Vrindavan, personalities like Nanda Maharaj and all the other cowherd men and their wives, and on the other side Vasudeva, his father, Shivasena, and all his relatives born in the family of Vishnu of the Yadu dynasty, along with all their friends and well-wishers, were actually demigods. Narada warned Kamsa to be careful of them, since Kamsa and his friends and advisors were all demons. Demons are always afraid of demigods. After being thus informed by Narada about the appearance of the demigods in different families, Kamsa at once became very much alarmed. He understood that since the demigods had already appeared, Lord Vishnu was becoming soon. He at once arrested both his brother-in-law Vasudeva and Devaki and put them behind prison bars. Within the prison, shackled in iron chains, Vasudeva and Devaki gave birth to male child year after year. And Kamsa, thinking of the babies to be the incarnation of Vishnu, killed them one after another. He was particularly afraid of the 8th child. But after the visit of Narada, he came to the conclusion that any child might be Krishna. Therefore, it was better to kill all the babies who took birth of Devaki and Vasudeva. This action of Kamsa is not very difficult to understand. In the history of the world, there are many instances of persons in the royal order who have killed their father, brother, or whole family and friends for the satisfaction of their ambitions. There is nothing astonishing about this, for members of the demonic, greedy royal order can kill anyone for their nefarious ambitions. Kamsa was made aware of his previous birth by the grace of Narada. He learned that in his previous birth he had been a demon of the name Kalaneni, and that he had been killed by Vishnu. Having now taken his birth in the Bhoja family, he decided to become a deadly enemy of the Yadu dynasty. Krishna was born at egg birth in that family, and Kamsa was very much afraid that he would be killed by Krishna, just as he had been killed in his last birth. He first of all imprisoned his father Ugrasena because he was the chief king among the Yadu, Bhoja, and Andaka dynasties. And he also occupied the kingdom of Shudasena, Vasudeva's father. He declared himself the king of all such places. Chapter 2. King Kamsa not only occupied the kingdoms of the Yadu, Bhoja, and Andaka dynasty and the kingdom of Shudasena, but he also made alliances with all the other demonic kings as follows: the demon Palamba, demon Baka, demon Chaluda, demon Trinavarta, demon Agasura, demon Mushtika, demon Avishta, demon Vivida, demon Putana, demon Keshi, and demon Denuka. At that time, Jarasandha was a king of the Magda province, known at present as Bihar state. Thus, by his diplomatic policy, Kamsa consolidated the most powerful kingdom of its time under the protection of Jarasandha. He made further alliances with such kings as Vanasuda and Bhaumasuda until he was destroyed. Then he began to behave most inimically towards the Yadu dynasty, into which Krishna was to take his place. Being harassed by Kamsa, the kings of the Yadu, Bhoja, and Andaka dynasties took shelter in different states, such as the state of the Kurus, the state of the Panchalas, the state known as Kekaya, Shalva, Vidadava, Nishadha, Videha, and Koshala. Kamsa broke the solidarity of the Yadu kingdom, as well as the Bhoja and Andaka. He made his position the most solid within the vast tract of land known at that time as the Bharata Varsha. Regarding Bharata Varsha, I just heard that the government in India is changing the name from India to Bharata. I don't know if you've heard that. Interesting.
It's not confirmed.
Huh?
It's not confirmed, but
Yeah, but they changed Bharata
they
changed
have the three options: India, Hindustan, or Bharat.
Okay. When Kamsa was killing the 6 babies of Devaki and Vasudeva, one after another, many friends and relatives of Kamsa approached him and requested him to discontinue these hideous activities. But all of them became worshippers of Kamsa. When Devaki became pregnant for the 7th time, a plenary expansion of Krishna, known as Ananta, appeared within her womb. Devaki was overwhelmed with both jubilation and lamentation. She was joyful, for she could understand that Lord Vishnu had taken shelter within her womb. But at the same time, she was sorry that as soon as her child would come out, Kamsa would kill her. At that time, the Supreme Person of Godhead, Krishna, being compassionate upon the Yadus, who were fearful due to the atrocities committed by Kamsa, ordered the appearance of Yoga Maya, his internal potency. Krishna is the Lord of the universe, but he is especially the Lord of the Yadu dynasty. Yoga Maya is the principal potency of the Supreme Person of Godhead. In the Vedas, it is stated that the Lord, the Supreme Person of Godhead, has multi-potencies, Parasa Shakti, Vividhaina Shuyate. All the different potencies are acting externally and internally. And Yogamaya is the chief of all potencies. The Lord ordered the appearance of Yogamaya in the land of Brajabhumi in which is always decorated and full with beautiful cows. In Vrindavan, Rohini, one of the wives of Vasudeva, was residing at the house of Nanda, King Nanda, and Queen Yashoda. Not only Rohini, but many others of the Yadu dynasty were scattered all over the country due to their fear of the atrocities of Kamsa. Some of them were even living in the caves of the mountains. The Lord thus informed Yogamaya under the imprisonment of Kamsa, Adivaki, and Vasudeva, and at the present moment my plenary expansion Shesha is within the womb of Devaki. You can arrange the transfer of Shesha from the womb of Devaki to the womb of Rohini. After this arrangement, I'm personally going to appear in the womb of Devaki with my full potencies. Then I shall appear as the son of Devaki and Vasudeva, and you shall appear as the daughter of Nanda and Yashoda and Vrindavan. Since you will appear as my contemporary sister, and since you will quickly satisfy desires for sanctification, people within the world will worship you with all kinds of valuable presentations, incense, candles, flowers, and offerings of sacrifice. People who after materialistic perfection will worship you under the different forms, of your expansions, which will be named Durga, Bhajakali, Vijaya, Vaishnavi, Kumara, Chandika, Krishna, Madhavi, Kanyaka, Maya, Narayani, Ishani, Sharada, and Ambika. Krishna and Yogamaya appeared as brother and sister, the supreme powerful and the supreme power. Although there is no clear distinction between the powerful and the power, power is always subordinate to the powerful. Those who are materialistic are worshippers of the power, but those who are transcendentalists are worshippers of the powerful. Krishna is the supreme powerful, and Durga is the supreme power within the material world. Actually, people in the Vedic culture worship both the powerful and the power. There are many hundreds and thousands of temples of Vishnu and Devi, and sometimes they are worshipped simultaneously. The worshipper of the power of Durga or the external energy of Krishna may achieve all kinds of material success very easily. But anyone who wants to be elevated transcendentally must engage in worshipping the powerful in Krishna consciousness. The Lord also declared to Yogamaya, my plenary expansion, Ananta Shesha, is within the womb of Devaki. On account of being forcibly attracted to the womb of Rohini, he will be known as Shankarshan, and will be the source of all spiritual power or bala, by which one can attain the highest bliss of life, which is called Ramana. Therefore, the plenary portion of Ananta will be known after his appearance either as Shankarshan or Balarama. In the Upanishads, it is stated, Nayama Atma Balahine Nalabhya. The purport is that one cannot attain the supreme platform of self-realization without being sufficiently favored by Balarama. Bala does not mean physical strength. No one can attain spiritual perfection by physical strength. One must have the spiritual strength which is infused by Balarama or Sankarshan. Ananta or Shesha is the source of the power which sustains all the planets in their different positions. Materially, this sustaining power is known as the law of gravitation, but actually it is a display of the potency of Sankarshan. Balarama or Sankarshan is the source of spiritual power, or the original spiritual master. Therefore, Lord Nityananda Prabhu, who is also the incarnation of Balarama, is the original spiritual master. And the spiritual master is a representative of Balarama. the form of the Supreme Personage of Godhead, who supplies spiritual strength. And the Chaitanya Charitamrita is confirmed that the spiritual master is a manifestation of the mercy of Krishna. Thus ordered by the Supreme Personage of Godhead, Yogamaya circumambulated the Lord and then appeared within this material world according to his order. When Yogamaya, the supreme power of the supreme powerful personality of Godhead, transferred Lord Shesha from the womb of Devaki to the womb of Mohini, both Devaki and Mohini were under Yogamaya's spell, which is called Yoga Nidra. When this was done, people thought that Devaki's seventh pregnancy had been a miscarriage. Thus, although Balarama appeared as the son of Devaki, he was transferred to the womb of Mohini to appear as her son. After this arrangement, the Supreme Personage of Godhead, Krishna, who was always ready to protect his unannoyed devotees, entered within the mind of Vasudeva as the Lord of the whole creation, with full, inconceivable potencies. It is understood in this connection that Lord Krishna first of all situated himself in the unalloyed heart of Vasudeva and was then transferred to the heart of Devaki. He was not put into the womb of Devaki by seminal discharge. The Supreme Lord of Godhead, by his inconceivable potency, can appear in any way. It is not necessary for him to appear in the ordinary way, by seminal injection within the womb of a woman. When Vasudeva was sustaining the form of the Supreme Personage of Godhead within his heart, he appeared just like a glowing sun, whose shining rays are always unbearable and scorching to the common man. The form of the Lord situated in the pure, unalloyed heart of Vasudeva is not different from the original form of Krishna. The appearance of the form of Krishna anywhere, and specifically within the heart, is called Dharma. Dharma refers not only to Krishna's form, but also to his name, his qualities, and his paraphernalia. Everything becomes manifest simultaneously. Thus, the eternal form of the Supreme Personage of Godhead, with full potencies, was transferred from the mind of Vasudeva to the mind of Devaki, exactly as the setting sun's rays are transferred to the full moon rising in the east. Krishna, the Supreme Personage of Godhead, thus entered the body of Devaki from the body of Vasudeva, without being subject to any of the conditions of an ordinary living entity. Since Krishna was there, it is to be understood that all its plenary expansions, such as Narayan, and incarnations like Lord Nrsimha and Varaha, were with him. And they also were not subject to the conditions of material existence. In this way, Devaki became the residence of the Supreme Personage of Godhead, who is one without a second, and the cause of all creation. Devaki became the residence of the Absolute Truth, but because she was confined within the house of Kamsa, she looked just like a suppressed fire, or like misused education. When fire is kept in a jug, the illuminating rays of the fire cannot be very much appreciated. Similarly, misused knowledge, which does not benefit the people in general, is not very much appreciated. So Devaki was kept within the prison walls of Kamsa's palace, and no one could see her transcendental beauty, which resulted from her concealing the Supreme Personage of God. Kamsa, however, saw the transcendental beauty of his sister Devaki, and he had at once concluded that the Supreme Personage of God had taken shelter in her womb. She had never before looked so wonderfully beautiful. He could distinctly understand that there was something wonderful within the womb of Devaki. In this way, Kamsa became perturbed because he was sure that the Supreme Person of Godhead, who would kill him in the future, had not come. Kamsa began to think, what is to be done with Dharma? Surely she has Vishnu or Krishna within her womb. So it is certain that Krishna has come to execute the mission of the demigods. And even if I immediately kill Devaki, his mission cannot be frustrated. Kamsa knew very well that no one can frustrate the purpose of Vishnu. Any intelligent man can understand that the laws of God cannot be violated. His purpose will be served in spite of all impediments offered by the demons. Kamsa thought, if I kill Devaki at the present moment, Vishnu will enforce the supreme will more vehemently. To kill Devaki just now would be a most abominable act. No one desires to kill his reputation, even in an awkward situation. If I kill Devaki now, my reputation will be spoiled. Devaki is a woman, and she's under my shelter. She's pregnant, and if I kill her, immediately my reputation, the results of my pious activities, and my duration of life will all be finished. He further deliberated. A person who is too cruel is as good as dead, even in this lifetime. No one likes a cruel person during his lifetime, and after his death people will curse him. On account of his self-identification with the body, he must be degraded and pushed into the darkest region of hell. Kamsa thus meditated on all the pros and cons of killing Devaki at that time. Kamsa finally decided not to kill Devaki right away, but to wait for the inevitable future. But his mind became absorbed in animosity against the personality of God. He patiently waited for the delivery of the child expected to kill him, as he had done previously with the other babies of Devaki. Thus, being merged in the ocean of animosity against the personality of Godhead, he began to think of Krishna or Vishnu while sitting, while sleeping, while walking, while eating, while working, in all situations of his life. His mind became so much absorbed with the thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that indirectly he could see only Krishna or Vishnu around him. Unfortunately, although his mind was so absorbed in thought of Vishnu, he is not recognized as a devotee because he was thinking of Krishna as an enemy. The state of mind of a great devotee is also to be always absorbed in Krishna, but the devotee thinks of him favorably, not unfavorably. To think of Krishna favorably is Krishna consciousness, but to think of Krishna unfavorably is not Krishna consciousness. At this time, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, accompanied by great sages like Narada, and followed by many other demigods, invisibly appeared in the house of Kamsa. They began to pray to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in select verses, which are very pleasing to devotees and which award fulfillment of their desires. The first words they spoke claimed that the Lord is true to his vow. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna descends to this material world just to protect the pious and destroy the impious. That is his vow. The demigods could understand that the Lord had taken his residence within the womb of Devaki to fulfill his vow, and they were very glad that the Lord was appearing in order to fulfill his mission. Then the demigods addressed the Lord as Satyam Param, or the supreme absolute truth. Everyone is searching after the truth. That is the philosophical way of life. The demigods give information that the supreme absolute truth is Krishna. One who becomes fully Krishna conscious can attain the absolute truth. Krishna is the absolute truth, because unlike relative truth, he is truth in all the three phases of eternal time. Time is divided into past, present, and future. Krishna is truth always, past, present, and future. And the material world, everything is being controlled by supreme time, and the cause of past, present, and future. But because the creation, before the creation, Krishna was existing. And when there's creation, everything is resting in Krishna. And when this creation is finished, Krishna will remain. Therefore, he is the absolute truth in all circumstances. If there's any truth within the material world, it emanates from the supreme truth, Krishna. If there's any opulence within this material world, the cause of the opulence is Krishna. If there's any reputation within the material world, the cause of the reputation is Krishna. If there is any strength within this material world, the cause of such strength is Krishna. If there's any wisdom and education within this material world, the cause of such wisdom and education is Krishna. Therefore, Krishna is the source of all relative truth. This material world is composed of 5 principal elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And all such elements emanations and all such elements emanations from Krishna. The material scientists accept these 5 primary elements as the cause of the material manifestation. But the elements in their gross and subtle states are produced by Krishna. The living energies who are working within the material world are products of the material potency. In the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that the whole manifestation is a combination of 2 kinds of energies of Krishna: the superior energy and the inferior energy. The living energies are the superior energy, and the dead material elements are his inferior energy. In its dormant stage, everything remains in Krishna. The demigods continue to offer the respectful prayers unto the supreme form of the personality of Godhead, Krishna, by analytical study of the material manifestation. What is this material manifestation? It is just like a tree. A tree stands on the ground. Similarly, the tree of the material manifestation is standing on the ground of material nature. This material manifestation is compared to a tree because a tree is ultimately cut off in due course of time. A tree is called vriksha. Vriksha means a thing which will be ultimately be cut off. Therefore, this tree of the material manifestation cannot be accepted as the ultimate truth, because it is influenced by time. But Krishna's body is eternal. He existed before the material manifestation. He is existing while his material manifestations continue, and when it will be dissolved, he will continue to exist. Therefore, only Krishna can be accepted as the absolute truth. The Katha Upanishad also cites this example of the tree of the material manifestation standing on the ground of material nature. This tree has 2 kinds of fruits, distress and happiness. Those who are living in the tree of the body are just like 2 birds. One bird is a localized aspect of Krishna known as the Paramatma, and the other bird is a living entity. Anyway, so we continue with the appearance of Krishna. The birth of Lord Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that his appearance, births, and activities are transcendental. And one who understands them actually becomes immediately eligible to be transferred to the spiritual world. The Lord's appearance of birth is not like that of an ordinary man, who is forced to accept the material body according to his past deeds. The Lord's appearance is explained in the second chapter. He appears out of his own sweet pleasure. When the time was mature for the appearance of the Lord, the constellation became very auspicious. The astrological influence of the star known as Rohini was predominant. This star is considered to be very auspicious and is under direct supervision of Brahma. According to the astrological conclusion, besides the proper situation of the stars, there are auspicious and inauspicious moments due to the different situations of the different planetary systems. At the time of Krishna's birth, the planetary systems were automatically adjusted so that everything became auspicious. At that time, in all directions, east, west, south, north, everywhere, there was an atmosphere of peace and prosperity. There were auspicious stars visible in the sky and on the surface of the earth. In all towns and villages and pasturing grounds, within the minds of everyone, there were signs of good fortune. The rivers were flowing full of waters. The lakes were beautifully decorated with lotus flowers. The forests were full with beautiful birds and peacocks. All the birds within the forest began to sing with sweet voices, and the peacocks began to dance along with their consorts. The wind blew very pleasingly, carrying the aroma of different flowers, and the sensation of bodily touch was very pleasing. At home, the brahmanas, who were accustomed to offering sacrifices in the fire, found their homes very pleasant for offerings. Due to disturbances created by the demonic kings, the sacrificial fire had been almost stopped in the house of brahmanas. But now they could find the opportunity to start the fire peacefully. Being forbidden to offer sacrifices, the brahmanas had been very distressed in mind, intelligence, and activity. But just on the point of Krishna's appearance, automatically their minds became full of joy, because they could hear transcendental vibrations in the sky, proclaiming the appearance of the Supreme Personality of God. The denizens of the Gandharvas and Kinara planets began to sing, and the denizens of Siddhaloka and the planets of the Charanas began to offer praise in the service of the Personality of God. And the heavenly planets, the angels and their wives, along with the Vityaharas and their wives, began to dance. The great sages and the demigods, being pleased, began to shower flowers. At the seashore, there were the sounds of million waves. Above the sea, there were clouds in the sky which began to thunder very pleasingly. When things were adjusted like this, Lord Vishnu, who is residing within the heart of ever-living entity, appeared in the darkness of night as the Supreme Personality of Godhead before Devaki, who appeared as one of the demigoddesses. The appearance of Lord Vishnu at that time could be compared to the rising of the full moon over the eastern horizon. The objection may be raised that since Lord Krishna appeared on the 8th day of the waning moon, there could be no rising of the full moon. In answer to this, it may be said that Lord Krishna appeared in the dynasty which is the hierarchy of the moon. Therefore, although the moon was incomplete that night because of the Lord's appearance, in the dynasty where in the moon is itself the original person, the moon was in an overjoyous condition. So by the grace of Krishna, he could appear just like a full moon. In an astronomical treatise by the name Kamanitya, The constellations at the time of the appearance of Lord Krishna are very nicely described. It is confirmed that the child born in that auspicious moment was the supreme Brahman of the absolute truth. Vasudeva saw that wonderful child born as a baby with 4 hands, holding conch, club, disc, and lotus flower, decorated with the mark of Srivasa, wearing the jeweled necklace of Kaustuva stone, dressed in yellow silk, appearing dazzling like a bright blackish cloud, like a bright blackish cloud, wearing a helmet bedecked with the Vaidurya stone, valuable bracelets, earrings, and similar other ornaments all over his body, and beautified by an abundance of hair on his head. Due to the extraordinary features of the child, Vasudeva was struck with wonder. How could a newly born child be so decorated? He could therefore understand that Lord Krishna had now appeared, and he became overpowered by the occasion. Vasudeva very humbly wondered that although he was an ordinary living entity conditioned by material nature, he was externally imprisoned by Kamsa, the all-pervading person of Godhead, Vishnu or Krishna, had appeared as a child in his home, exactly in his original position. No earthly child is born with 4 hands, decorated with ornaments and nice clothing, fully equipped with all the signs of the Supreme Person of Godhead. Over and over again, Vasudeva glanced at his child, and he considered how to celebrate this auspicious moment. Generally, when a male child is born, he thought, people observe the occasion with jubilant celebrations. And in my home, although I am in prison, the Supreme Lord of God has taken birth. How many millions and millions of times should I be prepared to observe this auspicious ceremony? When Vasudeva, who is also called Anakadun Buddhi, was looking at his Anakadun was looking at his newborn baby, he was so happy that he wanted to give many thousands of cows in charity to the Brahmanas. According to the Vedic system, whenever there's an auspicious ceremony in the Kshatriya king's palace, out of joy the king gives many things in charity. Cows decorated with golden ornaments are delivered to the Brahmanas and sages. Vasudeva wanted to perform a charitable ceremony to celebrate Krishna's appearance, but because he was shackled within the walls of Kamsa's prison, this was not possible. Instead, within his mind, he gave thousands of cows to the Brahmanas. When Vasudeva was convinced that the newborn child was the Supreme Person of God himself, he bowed down with folded hands and began to offer him prayers. At that time, Vasudeva was in the transcendental position, and he became completely free from all fear of Kamsa. The newborn child was also fleshing his effulgence within the womb in which he appeared. Vasudeva then began to offer his prayers. My dear Lord, I can understand who you are. You are the Supreme Person of God, the Supersoul of all living entities and the Absolute Truth. You have appeared in your own eternal form, which is directly perceived by us. I understand that because I'm afraid of Kamsa, you have appeared just to deliver me from that fear. You do not belong to this material world. You are the same person who brings about the cosmic manifestation simply by glancing over material nature. One may argue that the Supreme Person of Godhead, who creates the whole cosmic manifestation, simply by his glance cannot come within the womb of Devaki, the wife of Vasudeva. To eradicate this argument, Vasudeva said, My dear Lord, It is not a very wonderful thing that you have appeared within the womb of Devaki, because the creation was also made in that way. You were lying in the causal ocean of Mahavishnu, as Mahavishnu, and by your breathing process, innumerable universes came into existence. Then you entered into each of the universes as Gauravakashahi Vishnu. Then again, you expanded yourself in Kshirodakashahi Vishnu and entered into the hearts of all living entities and even into the atoms. Therefore, your entrance into the womb of Devaki is understandable in the same way. You appear to have entered, but you are simultaneously all-pervading. We can understand your entrance and non-entrance from material examples. The total material energy remains intact even after being divided into 16 elements. The material body is nothing but the combination of the 5 gross elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Whenever there is a material body, it appears that such elements are newly created, but actually the elements are always existing outside of the body. Similarly, although you have appeared as a child in the womb of Devaki, you are also existing outside. You are always in your abode, but still you can simultaneously expand yourself into millions of forms. One has to understand your appearance with great intelligence, because the material energy is also emanating from you. You are the visual source of the material energy, just as the sun is the source of the sunshine. The sunshine cannot cover the sun globe, nor can the material energy, being an emanation from you, cover you. You appear to be the 3 modes of material energy, but actually the 3 modes of material energy cannot cover you. This is understood by the highly intellectual philosophers. In other words, although you appear to be within the material energy, you're never covered by it. We hear from the Vedic version that the Supreme Brahman exhibits his influence, and therefore everything becomes illuminated. We can understand from the Brahma Samhita that the Brahma Jyoti, or the Brahmanifulgence, emanates from the body of the Supreme Lord. And from the Brahmanifulgence, all creation takes place. It is also stated in the Bhagavad Gita that the Lord is the support of the Brahmanifulgence. Therefore, originally, he is the root cause of everything. But persons who are less intelligent think that when the Supreme Godhead comes within this material world, he accepts the material qualities. Such conclusions are not very mature, but are made by the less intelligent. The Supreme Personality of God is directly and indirectly existing everywhere. He is outside this material creation, and he is also within it. He is within the material creation, not only as Gauravakashahi Vishnu, he is also within the atom. The existence of the atom is due to his presence. Nothing can be separated from his existence. In the Vedic injunctions we find that the Supreme Soul, or the root cause of everything, has to be searched out, because nothing exists independently of the Supreme Soul. Therefore, the material manifestation is also transformation of his potency. Both inert matter and the living force, the soul, are emanations from him. Only the foolish conclude that when the Supreme Lord appears, he accepts the conditions of matter. Even if he appears to have accepted the material body, he is still not subjected to any material condition. Krishna has therefore appeared and defeated all imperfect conclusions about the appearance and disappearance of the Supreme Personality of God. My Lord, you are the Supreme Controller, the Personality of God, the Supreme Great, maintaining the order of this cosmic manifestation. Yet in spite of your being Supreme Controller, you have so kindly appeared in my home. The purpose of your appearance is to kill the followers of the demonic rulers of the world, who are in the dress of warrior princes, but are actually demons. I am sure that you will kill all of them and their followers and soldiers. I understand you have appeared in order to kill the uncivilized Kamsa and his followers. But knowing that you were to appear in order to kill him and his followers, he has already killed so many of your predecessors, your elder brothers. Now he is simply awaiting the news of your birth. As soon as he hears about it, he will immediately appear with all kinds of weapons to kill you. After this prayer of Vasudeva, Devaki, the mother of Krishna, offered her prayers. She was very frightened because of her brother's atrocities. Devaki said, "My dear Lord, your eternal forms, like Narayana, Lord Rama, Hayashirsha, Paraha, Nisingha, Vamana, Varadev, and millions of similar incarnations emanating from Vishnu, are described in the Vedic literature as original. You are original because all your forms are incarnations, are outside of this material creation. Your form was existing before the cosmic manifestation was created. Your forms are eternal and all-pervading. They are also self-effulgent, changeless, and uncontaminated by the material qualities. Such eternal forms are never cognizant and full of bliss. They are situated in transcendental goodness and are always engaged in different pastimes. You are not limited to a particular form only. All such transcendental, eternal forms are self-effulgent. I can understand that you are the Supreme Lord Krishna. After many millions of years, when Lord Brahma comes to the end of his life, the annihilation of the cosmic manifestation takes place. At that time, the five elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, and ether, enter into the Mahatattva. The Mahatattva then enters by the force of time into the non-manifested total material energy. The total material energy enters into the energetic pradhan, and the pradhan enters into you. Therefore, after the annihilation of the whole cosmic manifestation, you alone remain in the transcendental name, form, qualities, and powerful time. My Lord, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you because you are the director of the unmanifested total energy and the ultimate reservoir of the material nature. My Lord, the whole cosmic manifestations and the influence of time, beginning from the moment up to the duration of the year, all act under your direction. You are the original director of everything and the reservoir of all potent energies. Hare Krishna. Is it okay? Nobody sleeping yet? Okay, so we continue. All the conditioned souls are continually fleeing from one body to another, and one planet to another, yet they do not get free from the onslaught of birth and death. But when one of these fearful living entities comes under the shelter of the lotus feet, he can lie down without anxiety of being attacked by formidable death. This statement by Devaki is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita by the Lord himself. There the Lord says that even after traveling all over the universe from Brahmaloka to Patalaloka, one cannot escape the attack of birth, death, disease, and old age. But one who enters the kingdom of God, the Lord says, is never again obliged to come to the material world. Therefore, my Lord, I request you to save me from the cruel hands of Kamsa, the son of Krishna. I am praying to your Lordship to please rescue me from this fearful condition, because you are always ready to give protection to your servants. The Lord has confirmed this statement in the Bhagavad Gita by assuring Arjuna, you may declare to the world, my devotee will never be vanquished. While thus praying to the Lord for rescue, Mother Devaki nonetheless expressed her motherly affection. I understand that this transcendental form is generally perceived in meditation by the great sages, but I am still afraid because as soon as Kamsa understands that you have appeared, he might harm you. So I request that for the time being you become invisible to our material eyes. In other words, she requested the Lord to assume the form of an ordinary child. My only cause of fear for my brother Kamsa is due to your appearance. My Lord Madhusudana, I wish that Kamsa may not learn that you are already born. Therefore I request you to conceal this four-armed form of your Lordship, which holds the four symbols of Vishnu, namely conch, shell, the disc, the club, and the lotus flower. My dear Lord, at the end of the annihilation of the cosmic manifestation, you put the whole universe within your thumb. Still, by your unalloyed mercy, you have appeared in my womb. I am surprised that you imitate the activities of an ordinary human being just to please the devotee. On hearing the prayers of Devaki, the Lord replied, my dear mother, in the millennium of Swayambhuva Manu, my father Vasudeva was living as one of the Prajapatis. His name at that time was Sutapa, and you were his wife named Krishna. At that time, when Lord Brahma was desiring to increase the population, he requested you to generate offspring. You control your senses and perform severe austerities by practicing the breathing exercises of the yoga system. Both you and your husband could tolerate all the influences of the material laws. The rainy season, the onslaught of the wind, and the scorching heat of the sunshine. You also executed all religious principles. In this way, you were able to please your heart and control the influence of the material laws. In executing your austerity, you used to eat only the leaves of the trees, which fell to the ground. Then, with a steady mind and controlled sex drive, you worshipped me, desiring some wonderful benediction from me. Both of you practiced severe austerities for 12,000 years by the calculation of the demigods. During that time, your mind was always absorbed in me. When you were executing devotional service and always thinking of me within your heart, I was very much pleased with you. O sinless mother, your heart is therefore always pure. At that time, also I appeared before you in this form, just to fulfill your desire, and I asked you to ask whatever you desired. At that time, you wished to have me born as your son. Although you saw me personally, instead of asking for your complete liberation from material bondage, under the influence of my energy, you asked me to become your son. In other words, to appear in the material world, the Lord selected his mother and father, namely Krishna and Sutapa. Whenever the Lord comes as a human being, he must have a mother and father. So he selected Krishna and Sutapa to be his mother and father and husband. And on account of this, neither Krishna nor Sutapa could ask the Lord for liberation. Liberation is not so important as the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The Lord could have awarded Krishna and Sutapa immediate liberation, but he preferred to keep them within his material world for his different appearances, as will be explained in the following verses. On receiving the benediction from the Lord to become his father and mother, Sutapa and Krishna retired from the activities of austerities and lived as husband and wife in order to beget a child who was the Supreme Lord himself. In due course of time, Krishna became pregnant and gave birth to a child. The Lord spoke to Devaki and Vasudeva. At that time, my name was Krishna Garba. In the next millennium, you took birth as Aditi and Kashyapa, and I became your child of the name Upendra. At that time, my form was just like a dwarf, and for this reason, I was known as Vamanadeva. I gave you the benediction that I would take birth as your son 3 times. The first time I was known as Krishnagava, born of Krishna Sutapa. The next birth there was Upendra, born of Aditi and Kashyapa. And now for the 3rd time I'm born as Krishna from you, Devaki and Vasudeva. I have appeared in this Vishnu form just to convince you that I am the same personality of Godhead, again taken birth. I could have appeared just like an ordinary child, but in that way you would not have believed that the Supreme Potentate of Godhead had taken birth in your womb. My dear father and mother, you have therefore raised me many times as your child, with great affection and love, and I am therefore very much pleased and obliged to you. And I assure you that this time you shall go back to Godhead, on account of your perfection and your vision. I know that you are very concerned about me and afraid of counsel. Therefore, I order you to take me immediately to Gokula and exchange me for the daughter who has just been born to Yashoda. Having spoken thus to his father and mother, the Lord turned himself into an ordinary child in their presence and remained silent. Being ordered by the Supreme Potentate Godhead, Vasudeva prepared to take his son from the delivery room. And exactly at that time, a daughter was born to Nanda and Yashoda. She was Yogamaya, the internal potency of the Lord. By the influence of this material potency, Yogamaya, all the residents of Kamsa's palace, especially the doorkeepers, were overwhelmed with deep sleep. All the palace doors opened. Although they were bared and shackled with iron chains, the night was very dark, but as soon as Vasudeva took Krishna on his lap and went out, you could see everything just as in the sunlight. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, they said that Krishna is just like sunlight, and that wherever there's Krishna, the illusory energy, which is compared to darkness, cannot remain. When Vasudeva was carrying Krishna, the darkness of the night disappeared. All the prison doors automatically opened. At the same time, there was thunder in the sky and severe rainfall. While Vasudeva was carrying his son Krishna, in the falling rain, Lord Shesha, in the shape of a serpent, spread his hood over the head of Vasudeva, so that he could not be hampered by the rainfall. Vasudeva came to the bank of the Yamuna and saw that the water of the Yamuna was roaring with waves, and that the whole span was full of foam. Still, in that furious feature, the river gave passage to Vasudeva to cross, just as the great Indian Ocean gave a pass to Lord Rama when he was bridging over the Gulf. In this way, Vasudeva crossed the river Yamuna. On the other side, he went to the place of Nanda Maharaj, situated in Gokula, where he saw that all the coward men were fast asleep. He took the opportunity to silently enter the house of Yashoda and without difficulty exchanged his son for the baby girl newly born there. Then after entering the house very silently and exchanging the body for the girl, he returned to the prison of Kamsa and silently put the girl on the lap of Devaki. He again clamped the shackles on himself so that Kamsa could not recognize that so many things had happened. Mother Yashoda understood that a child had been born to her, but because she was very tired from the labor of childbirth, she fell fast asleep. When she awoke, she could not remember whether she had given birth to a male or female child. After Vasudeva adjusted things as they had been before, he carried Krishna to Gokula. After Vasudeva adjusted things as they had been before, he carried Krishna to Gokula, and all the doors and gates became silently closed. The gatekeepers awoke and heard the newborn child crying. Kamsa was waiting to hear the news of the child's birth, and the gatekeepers immediately approached him and informed him the child was born. At that time, Kamsa got up from bed very quickly and exclaimed, "Now the cruel death of my life is born." Kamsa became perplexed now that his death was approaching, and his hair scattered. Immediately he proceeded towards the place where the child was born. Devaki, on seeing her brother approaching, prayed in a very meek attitude to Kamsa, "My dear brother, please do not kill this female child. I promise that this child will be the wife of your son. Therefore don't kill her. You are not to be killed by any female child. The omen was that you are to be killed by a male child. So please do not kill her. My dear brother, you have killed so many of my children who were just born, shining like the sun. That is not your fault. You have been advised by demonic friends to kill my children. But now I beg you to excuse this girl at least. Let her live as my daughter." Kamsa was so cruel, he did not listen to the pitiful prayers of his sister Devaki. He forcibly grabbed the newborn child to rebuke his sister's attempt to dash her on a stone mercifully. This is a graphic example of a cruel demon who would sacrifice all relationships for the sake of personal gratification. But the child immediately slipped out of his hands, went up into the sky, and appeared with 8 arms as a younger sister of Vishnu. She was decorated with nice garments and flower garlands and ornaments. In her 8 hands she had a bow, lance, arrow, sword, conch, and shell, disc, club, and shield. Seeing the appearance of the child, who was actually the goddess Durga, all the demigods from different planets like Siddhaloka, Chananaloka, Kadharmaloka, Apsaraloka, Kilaraloka, and Ulagalaloka presented her with various articles and began to offer their respective praise. From above, the goddess addressed Kamsa, "You rascal, how can you kill me? This child who will kill you is already born before he somewhere within this world. Don't be so cruel to your poor sister." After this appearance, Goddess Durga became known by various names in various parts of the world. After hearing these words, Kamsa became very much overwhelmed with fear. Out of pity, he immediately released Vasudeva and Devaki from the bondage of their shackles and very politely began to address them. He said, "My dear sister and brother-in-law, I have acted just like a demon in killing my own nephews, your children, and thereby I have given all consideration of our intimate relationship. I do not know what will be the result of these envious acts of mine. Probably I shall be sent to the hell where killers of Brahmanas go. I am surprised, however, that the celestial prophecy has not come true. It is not only in human society that false propaganda is found. Now it appears that even the celestial denizens speak lies. Because I believed in the words of the celestial denizens, I have committed so many sins by killing the children of my sister. My dear Vasudeva and Devaki, you are both very great souls. I have no instructions to give you, but still I request that you not be sorry for the death of your children. Every one of us is under the control of superior power, and that superior power does not allow us to remain together. We are bound to be separated from our friends and relatives in due course of time. But we must know for certain that even after the disappearance of the different material bodies, the soul remains intact eternally. For example, there are many pots made of earthly clay, and they are prepared and also broken. But in spite of this, the earth remains and it is perpetual. Similarly, the bodies of the soul under different conditions are made and destroyed, but the spirit soul remains eternal. So there is nothing to lament over. Everyone should understand that this material body is different from the spirit soul. And so long as one does not come to that understanding, be sure to accept the process of transmigration from one body to another. My dear sister Devaki, you are so gentle and kind. Please excuse me. Don't be aggrieved by the deaths of your children, which I have caused. Actually, this was not done by me, because all these are predestined activities. One has to act according to the predestined plan, even unwillingly. People misunderstand that with the end of the body itself dies, or they think that one can kill another living entity. All these misconceptions oblige one to accept the conditions of material existence. In other words, as long as one is not firmly convinced of the eternality of the soul, one is subjected to the tribulation of being killer and killed. My dear sister Devaki and brother-in-law Vasudeva, kindly excuse the atrocities I have committed against you. I am very poor-hearted, and you are so great-hearted. You take compassion upon me and excuse me. While Kamsa was speaking to his brother-in-law and sister, tears flowed from his eyes, and he fell down at their feet, believing the words of Durga Devi, whom he had tried to kill. Kamsa immediately released his brother-in-law and sister. He personally unlocked the iron shackles and very sympathetically showed his friendship for his family members. When Devaki saw her brother so repentant, she also became pacified and forgot all his atrocious activities against the children. Vasudeva also, forgetting all past incidents, spoke smilingly with his brother-in-law. Vasudeva told Kamsa, my dear fortunate brother-in-law, what you are saying about the material body of the soul is correct. Every living entity is born ignorant, misunderstanding this material body to be itself. This conception of life is due to ignorance, and on the basis of this ignorance, we create enmity and friendship, lamentation, jubilation, fearfulness, envy, greed, illusion, and madness are different features of our material concept of life. A person influenced like this engages in enmity only due to the material body. Being engaged in such activities, we forget our eternal relationship. with the Supreme Personality of God. Shall we continue? Huh?
64 rounds.
Okay. Thank you. Listening.
Yeah, it's about 10.
Yes, so we end here?
Huh?
So we end here?
I don't listen.
Okay, so we end here?
You listen.
10 minutes more, please.
Yeah, okay. Vasudeva took the opportunity of Kamsa's benevolence and informed him that his atheistic activities were also due to his misconception of life. He had taken the material body to be the sun. When Vasudeva talked with Kamsa in such illuminating way, Kamsa became very pleased, and his guilt for killing his nephews subsided. With the permission of his sister Devaki and brother-in-law Vasudeva, he returned to his home with a relieved mind. But the next day, Kamsa called all his counselors together and narrated to them all the incidents that had happened the night before. All the counselors of Kamsa were demons and eternal enemies of the demigod. So they became depressed upon hearing their master speak of the night's events. And although they were not very much experienced or learned, they began to give instructions to Kamsa as follows. Dear sir, let us now make arrangements to kill all children who were born within the last 10 days in all towns, counties, villages, and pasturing grounds. Let us execute this plan indiscriminately. We think that the demigods cannot be anything. We think that the demigods cannot do anything against us if we perform these atrocities. They are always afraid of fighting with us, and even if they wish to check our activities, they will not dare to do so. Because of your immeasurable strength, they fear your bow. Indeed, we have practical experience that whenever you stood to fight with them and began to shower your arrows on them, they immediately fled in all directions just to save their lives. Many of the demigods were unable to fight with you, and they immediately surrendered themselves unto you by losing their turbans and the tufts of hair on your head. With folded hands they begged you to spare them and say, My Lord, you are all afraid. My Lord, we are all afraid of your strength. Please release us from this dangerous fight. We have also seen many times that you would never kill such surrendered fighters when they were all fearful, their bows, arrows, and chariots broken, forgetful of their military activities and unable to fight with you. So actually, we have nothing to fear from these demigods. They are very proud of being great fighters in peacetime outside the war field, but actually they cannot show any talent or military power on the war field. Although Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, and Lord Brahma are always ready to help the demigods, headed by Indra, we have no reason to be afraid of them. As far as Lord Vishnu is concerned, he has already hidden himself within the hearts of all living entities, and he cannot come out. As far as Lord Shiva is concerned, he has renounced all activities. He has already entered into the forest, and Lord Brahma is always engaged in different types of austerities and meditation. And what to speak of Indra? He is a straw in comparison to your strength. Therefore, we have nothing to fear from any of these demigods. But we must not neglect them, for the demigods are our determined enemies. We must be careful to protect ourselves, to root them out from their very existence. We should just engage ourselves in your service and be always ready for your command. The demons continue to say, if there is some disease in the body which is neglected, it worsens and becomes incurable. Similarly, when one is not careful about restraining the senses and let them loose, it is then very difficult to control them. Therefore, we must now be very careful of staying long to be subdued. The foundation of the strength of the demigods is Lord Vishnu, because the ultimate goal of all religious principles is to satisfy him. The Vedic injunctions, the Brahmanas, the cows, austerity, sacrifices, performance of charity, and distribution of wealth are all for the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu. So let us immediately begin by killing all the Brahmanas who are in charge of Vedic knowledge, along with the great sages who are in charge of sacrificial ritualistic performances. Let us kill all the cows, which are the source of the butter, which is so necessary for performing sacrifices. Please give us your permission to kill all these creatures. Actually, the limbs of the transcendental body of Lord Vishnu are the Brahmanas, the cows, Vedic knowledge, austerity, truthfulness, sense and mind control, faithfulness, charity, tolerance, and performance of sacrifices. Lord Vishnu is situated in everyone's heart and is the leader of all demigods, including Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. Therefore, we think that to persecute the great sages and Brahmanas is to kill Lord Vishnu. Thus, being advised by his demonic ministers, Kamsa, who was from the very beginning the greatest rascal, decided to persecute the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. Being entrapped by the shackles of all devouring eternal time, he ordered the demons to harass all kinds of saintly persons, and then he entered his house. The adherents of Kamsa were all influenced by the mood of passion, and as well as illusioned by the mood of ignorance, and their only business was to create enmity with saintly persons. Such activities can only reduce one's duration of life. The demons accelerated the process and invited their death as soon as possible. The result of persecuting saintly persons is not only untimely death. The act is so offensive that the perpetrator also gradually loses his beauty, his fame, his religious principles, and thus his promotion to higher planets is checked. Driven by various kinds of mental concoctions, the demons diminish all kinds of auspiciousness. An offense at the lotus feet of the devotees and Brahmanas is a great offense, and that committed at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A civilization that commits such sinful activities generally loses all faith in the Supreme Lord, and such a godless civilization becomes the source of all calamities in human society. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 4th chapter of Krishna. Kamsa begins his persecution. Hare Krishna. Then we already passed
No, 1 minute to 10.
1 minute to 10?
Yeah. 1 minute.
Well,
Set up rules.
any questions, any comments? It's all clear. Yeah.
There's the question from Mataji. There's the question.
Okay.
Did he actually appear in a child form, or
Sorry?
did he appear in a child form?
Child form
with
with 4
a
arms.
4 arms,
Yes.
or
There's a picture. There's a picture of Krishna. And it also mentioned, Prabhupada mentioned that when Krishna appeared, Vasudeva and Devaki went keeping a distance. They couldn't develop a very intimate relationship with that form because of forearms. And so when finally this, the human form manifested, immediately they had a very close and intimate relationship with that form of Krishna. Anyone wants to add something? Yeah.
Maharaj, thank you very much for this reading session here. Just recalling that once I was going on Rajmala Parikram, and there was a Swami, Radharaman Swami, who was speaking at a...
Can you speak something?
Yeah, I was going on Rajmala Parikram once, and there was a Swami, Radharaman Swami, who was speaking there at the Anandi Bandi temple, I think it's called. There's a Yogamaya temple there. And he was explaining that actually Krishna was born simultaneously in Kamsa's prison, but also he appeared at the same time as the son of Yashoda. And I was bewildered by this, and I asked him, I said, well, is this in Prabhupada's book somewhere? And he said, oh yes, it's there.
That's why we should always ask.
Pardon me?
We should always ask when we hear things that we never heard before, or didn't remember from Prabhupada, we should always ask.
Yeah.
Where is this from?
Yeah. And he said, oh yes, it's there.
Where?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking, God, I've been reading Prabhupada's books for 30 years, and I don't even know where Krishna was born, and I was feeling a little. But there was a devotee there named Radhika Ramana, who he was actually in Stockholm University yesterday, in connection with Prabhupada's 50th anniversary there. He's a professor there, and he had written, his dissertation on Jiva Goswami. So anyway, I asked him, I said, how is this, where is this, And he said, well, actually it's there in Gopal Bhatta's, Gopal Bhatta Goswami's, Jiva Goswami, sorry. In Jiva Goswami's magnum opus, there's Gopal Champu. It's stated there, yes, that Krishna was born simultaneously. And then I said, well, what about, where is this in Prabhupada's books? He said, the Bhagavatam version of Sukadeva Goswami, it's actually the official, it's the official public version. So I was, scratching my head and I was walking away thinking, well. But the next year, just before Janmashtami, I was reading the 10th canto, Prabhupada's 10th canto. And there, when it came to the end of the 4th chapter there, it says that, Kamsa, Yogamaya was given the name Anuja. Yeah, she's addressed as Anuja there, Yogamaya. And there in the purport, if you read carefully, Prabhupada says, yes, this Anuja, it means younger sister, so therefore it must be that Krishna appeared simultaneously as the son of Mother Yashoda. So that Krishna appeared as the son of Mother Yashoda, so that the twins.
Which 4th chapter?
In the 4th chapter here of Prabhupada's Bible. No, not the Krishna book, in the Bible, in Prabhupada's Bhagavatam. There it says that.
Is it here?
Yeah, we should find it. But then, it says there, and then in the next chapter, the 5th chapter, which we were just about, then it said that when, in the next chapter, it explains how Nanda Maharaj was celebrating Krishna's birthday, and that he cut the umbilical cord, it says there. And then in that purport probably explains a little more elaborately that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has taken great measures to, find in various scriptures evidence that Krishna actually appeared first, simultaneously as the son Anushya, and also had
Nothing to say? Okay. Anything else? Maharaj, anything?
My purpose is same. So it's there, it's in the books. I don't think we have to be too concerned about it. We understand that when Krishna appears, it's very mystical. Everything that Krishna does has to be very mystical. And we may not understand it, but that's okay. It's real. It's true.
You want to say anything?
I just wonder what happened then with when he took the girl, he put Krishna there, so they obviously merged and became two Krishnas became one. Then he took the girl, maybe back to the Krishna.
Inconceivable.
So he cut the umbilical cord of Krishna, it said. What about the other manuscripts? We have the example also of Krishna coming from different palaces.
Louder.
When Krishna comes from different palaces in Dwarka, he becomes one person. So that he goes to the Sudharma, palace for having a talk on audience. I don't remember. Anyway, then it's an example that Krishna is merging into one from many. So if he can merge from 16,108 forms to one, it's so difficult for him to merge.
Yeah, if you would speak louder.
Have you understood what I said?
Yes.
Can you repeat it?
Yeah. Just as when Krishna is with his 16,000 wives, he leaves each palace, but when he comes to the destination, it is just one form of Krishna.
What do you want?
When Krishna in Dwarka, he's in each palace of the queens.
Yeah.
So he leaves each palace, but when he arrives at the destination, it is just one Krishna. So if you can do that from 16,000 forms, it's not very difficult from two forms to merge into one form.
The story we usually hear is that the Lord fell asleep, and she couldn't remember if it was a boy or a girl.
Yeah.
That's what. Where did we get that from?
Where this comes from?
Where does that come from? That's.
This was my last yesterday. Sure, I couldn't remember.
Says here, we just read it. Well, okay.
Maybe next reading session we can pick up that book so we can just read it, so there will be no doubts.
Good idea. Hare Krishna, thank you very much.
Yeah.